Welcome back to story time. Now this is the period of Shraddha Paksha, that period where everybody pays homage to their ancestors. And while we do this, the thought definitely arises in our minds, what exactly determines what happens after life on this earth? Well, today's story will reveal just a little bit of that. And this is the story about a King of Kashi. Now this is a parable of ancient times. So there was this rule in the kingdom of Kashi that anybody could become the ruler of the land, and their tenure would be exactly for 5 years. However, there was a condition. At the end of this 5-year tenure, the king would have to cross the river Ganga, and he would be forcibly taken there and deposited on the other side of the river bank. And there was a dense, thick, wild jungle on the other side, which was infested with wild and ferocious beasts, and the king would be left there all alone to die. And because of this condition, many dreaded this thought of becoming a ruler of their own land. However, many were greedy because they wanted to enjoy the royal comforts and luxuries, and they thought that one might as well enjoy this tenure for as long as it lasts, and they wouldn't think much about what happened later. And so it was that ruler after ruler became the king of this blessed land, and then would be piteously, mercilessly, relentlessly taken across the river and then deposited there to die. It was a scene which all the subjects of the kingdom would come to witness. The last day of the ruler's tenure would be one where the ruler would be seen crying, begging, pleading not to be taken across. However, the ministers, the boatmen, everybody would ensure that this rule would be taken care of. This rule would be followed, and no king could escape this fate. And so it was that another king had now ruled very righteously and nobly, had completed his period of the 5-year rule, and the day had come when he would be taken across the river banks. Again, all the subjects had come there, for this was a 5-yearly spectacle. No one would miss it. However, this time there was something strange. The king had come walking regally. His face shone with joy and happiness. There was not even the slightest mark of fear on his face, not a frown, no worry lines. In fact, he came dressed in all of the regal splendor and royal clothes. All the commoners were very surprised, and even the ministers began to wonder. Now, the king addressed his ministers. He told them that I wish to be accompanied by some of you. Won't you accompany me on this boat? And the ministers knew that though it was the last day, he was still their ruler, and so they agreed to accompany him. When the king saw the boat, he saw that the boat had no luxuries whatsoever, for it was finally meant for someone who would be taken away to die. But he, being the ruler, insisted that the boat be decorated. There would be royal pillows and cushions and royal linen spread on the boat. For after all, wasn't he a king, even if it was the last day of his rule in this kingdom of Kashi? And so everybody agreed, for this was a fair thought, and now the king sat on this boat. As everybody settled in the boat, the boatman suddenly found the behavior of the king very strange. And so the boatman tried to remind him. He told him, "Oh Raja, how come you are not at all worried? Don't you know there is a wild, thick, dense jungle on the other side of the river bank, infested with ferocious animals? They will take your life the minute you step into that forest." And the king laughed. The boatman was perplexed. the king elaborated. He told him, "My dear boatman, looks like you haven't been paying attention to whatever has been going across to and fro across the river in the last 5 years." And as the boatman continued to look in wonder at the king explained. He said, "When I ascended on the throne of this lovely kingdom, all along I knew that at the end of 5 years I would be taken there to die. And so I planned well. While I was enjoying the riches and the luxuries of the kingdom, in the first year I sent my best hunters. They went across the river bank. They went into the jungle, took care and captured all the animals there, and took them and rehabilitated them in a place far away and ideal for them to stay. In the second year, I sent my best architects, the masons, the engineers, to go there to clear the trees, transplant them into another area far away, and make place to build the best of palaces, the best mansions, buildings, dwellings, parks, pools, lakes that would make this place a paradise on earth. In the further years, I picked up loyal and trusted ministers. I picked up noble and good and virtuous citizens of this land who are loyal to me, and sent them there ahead. Made them stay in the dwellings, made them the owners of all these houses, so that they would continue to stay there when I would reach there. And finally, now when it is time for me to go there, I am the king of this new place which I have named as Kashi, and all of them await my entry. They are waiting there, ready to welcome me. All the ministers, the wise men have already drawn out a plan on how to make that place the best possible country to live in. And because I have spent my time like that, I have no worries. Now the boatman was truly impressed, and further the king told him, "My dear boatman, if you wish, you can become my noble boatman in the new kingdom of Kashi. And look there, look at the people who are standing there ready to welcome me." And as the boatman watched, as he rowed the boat gently closer and closer to the other bank, he witnessed a miracle. There was a beautiful sight that awaited his eyes. There was a band with the best of musicians beating their drums and playing their musical instruments, ready to welcome their new king. All the citizens had come there, dressed in the finest clothes and jewels. And the city was a spectacle to watch. Beautiful dwellings, beautiful mansions, and the most splendid palace stood there for everybody who could care to watch it. And the boatman realized that the king had indeed spent his 5 years in Kashi very wisely, unlike his predecessors. And royally and regally he descended from the boat. He was welcomed as the new king, where he continued to rule most righteously and nobly while enjoying the pleasures and luxuries of kingship. This story reminds us of how we ought to live in this life when we know very well that the time is fixed. Our tenure here is pre-decided by fate, but what we can do in this life is in our hands. Like the king decided to take fate into his own hands, we too can use what is known as Purushartha, our efforts to make our future a supremely happy and peaceful one. I hope you liked this parable today, and if you did, do share it with your family and friends, and wait for the story the coming Thursday. Until we meet again, Hari Om.